The sound reached me before the alert did. Wood. Metal. Then a voice. Low. Impatient. Familiar. I'll find the deed and sell it. I stared at the hospital room ceiling and forgot to breathe. My phone was still in my hand. The security app was open. The camera angle showed my front hallway. A shadow moved past the frame. Then came the scrape of something hard against my front door. I sat up too fast and felt pain pull across my ribs. He was inside my house. And he thought I couldn't stop him. That's when I realized something was very wrong. I had been in the hospital for 3 days by then. Nothing life-threatening. A bad fall from a ladder while fixing a gutter I should have paid someone else to fix. 2 cracked ribs, a shoulder strain, and a mild concussion that the doctor said needed observation because I had blacked out longer than I remembered. It was the kind of injury that makes ordinary things feel far away. Water on the bedside table. A chair near the window. The soft beeping of a monitor in the room across the hall. Time moved strangely there. The first day, I slept most of the afternoon. The second day, I started checking my phone more often. Work messages. A few missed calls. One text from my neighbor asking if I wanted her to bring in a package from my porch. And then a message from my brother asking how serious the injury was. That part, by itself, was unusual. My brother and I were not close in the warm, reliable way people use that phrase. We were close in geography for years, close in blood by accident, and close enough in family history to know exactly where the pressure points were. He called when he needed something. He visited when other people were watching. He had a way of sounding concerned that always seemed slightly rehearsed. Still, when he texted, I replied. 2 words. I'm okay. He sent back, need me to check the house? I looked at that message for longer than I should have. I owned my house outright. Small brick place. 2 bedrooms. Narrow front porch. Decent backyard. Not impressive, but mine. I had bought it after 15 years of careful work, skipped vacations, and saying no to anything that felt like a luxury. My brother, on the other hand, treated money like an emotion. If he had it, he spent it. If he didn't have it, he borrowed it. If nobody would lend it, he came looking for family. So I told him no. I said the neighbor was keeping an eye on things. He didn't answer after that. By the next morning, my discharge had been delayed because I was still dizzy when I stood up. A nurse in her 50s with kind eyes and a blunt voice told me not to argue with the doctor. I nodded and stayed put. Around noon, my cousin Layla stopped by with fresh clothes and my charger. She sat at the foot of the bed, peeled an orange, and gave me the kind of look people use when they're deciding whether to say something. What? I asked. She shrugged. Nothing. Your brother called your mother this morning. That wasn't news. He called our mother whenever he wanted sympathy or an audience. And, I said. Layla broke off another piece of orange. He was asking weird questions. About whether you kept your paperwork at home. Insurance, title, house stuff. I felt a quiet shift in my chest. Not sharp fear. Something flatter. Colder. What did she say? She said she didn't know. Then she told me I was making too much of it when I asked why he cared. That sounded right. In our family, concern was always treated like troublemaking if it pointed in the wrong direction. My brother could lose rent money at a poker table and still be described as going through a phase. I could raise one practical question and be told to stop assuming the worst. Later that afternoon, my mother called me herself. She asked how I was feeling. Asked whether the food was terrible. Asked whether I needed socks. Then, in the same soft voice, she said, "Your brother just worries, you know." I let a few seconds pass. He asked about my paperwork. He was probably just thinking ahead. In case you need help. With what? With anything. I turned my head and looked out the window. Parking lot. Grey sky. One bent tree near the far curb. I didn't ask for help, I said. She sighed the way she always did when I failed to follow the script. You always do this. You make everything sound suspicious. Maybe I did. Or maybe I had learned the pattern because the pattern had repeated enough times to stop being abstract. Small lies. Borrowed tools not returned. A key copied just in case. An old checkbook taken from our father's desk years ago and later laughed off as a misunderstanding. Every event on its own was minor. That was how people like him stayed protected. Nothing was ever big enough all at once. That evening, I opened the security app for the first time since being admitted. I had installed the cameras after a string of package thefts on the block. Front porch. Driveway. Back door. Hallway facing the entry. Cheap system, but clear enough. The porch was empty. So was the driveway. But around 8:14 p.m., I saw a notification from earlier in the day that I had missed while I was in imaging. Motion detected. Front door area. I tapped it and watched my brother stand on my porch with his hands in his jacket pockets. He didn't knock right away. He looked at the windows first. Then he leaned toward the side panel near the knob, the place where an old spare key used to be hidden years ago before I removed it. After a minute, he took out his phone, typed something, and left. A few seconds later, my mother texted me. "Your brother stopped by. He said he might water your plants tomorrow." I read that text twice. I didn't have plants. The next morning, I called my neighbor, Mrs. Alvarez, and asked whether she had seen anyone around the house. She hesitated. "Your brother was there last night," she said. "I thought maybe you asked him to be." I didn't. Another pause. "He tried your side gate too." I thanked her and ended the call. Then I checked the camera settings. One of the backyard feeds had gone offline for 11 minutes around the same time he was at the side gate. Not enough to prove anything by itself, but enough to tell me this wasn't concern. It was interest. Layla came by again before dinner. I showed her the porch footage. She went quiet. "You should call him," she said. "No. He's clearly up to something." "I know. You're too calm." That almost made me smile. Calm was what people called it when they didn't notice you were counting. Because by then I had remembered something else. 2 weeks earlier, at our mother's house, my brother had asked whether I still kept important papers in the file box near my desk. He said it casually while reaching for a beer. I had answered without thinking. Not a full answer, but enough. At the time, it felt harmless. Standing there in a hospital gown with a plastic wristband on my arm, it didn't feel harmless anymore. That night, I called a locksmith. Not to come immediately, just to ask questions. Could locks be rekeyed without replacing the doors? Yes. Could it be done same day? Usually. Could smart entry logs be connected afterward? Yes. I booked the earliest appointment for the morning I expected to be discharged and gave strict instructions that no one but me was allowed on the property during the work. Then I changed the garage code remotely. Then the alarm code. Then the app password. Then I waited. At 2:07 a.m., another motion alert came through. My brother again. This time he had a flashlight. He moved along the side of the house slowly, keeping close to the wall. When he reached the back entrance, he tried the handle once. Then again. Then he took out his phone and made a call. A minute later, my mother called me. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. A message came in right after. "He's just checking if everything is secure. Don't start." I watched the video one more time. My brother testing the door. My mother covering for him before I had even accused anyone of anything. That was enough. I set my phone down on the blanket and looked at the ceiling until morning light began to thin the dark around the window frame. I still had no proof of what he wanted exactly. Not yet. But I knew this much. He believed I was hurt, distracted, and alone. He believed the house was vulnerable. He believed family would blur the edges if he crossed a line. He was wrong. So I stopped reacting. And I started watching. The next morning, I watched the footage again. Not quickly. Slowly. I let every second play out. My brother moved like someone who believed he belonged there. No hesitation. No urgency. Just quiet confidence that the door would open eventually if he kept trying. The flashlight beam slid across the siding. Then the handle turned again. Locked. He stepped back, looked toward the neighbor's fence. Then he leaned closer to the doorframe, feeling along the trim where spare keys are usually hidden. There was nothing there. He stood still for a moment. Then he took out his phone and dialed. A few seconds later, my own phone buzzed on the hospital tray table. My mother. I didn't answer. Her voicemail came immediately after. Your brother is just checking the house. Don't read into it. I replayed the video. The words didn't match the behavior. People checking a house knock on the door. They don't circle the property in the dark. I downloaded the footage. Then I checked the earlier clip again from the afternoon before. Same thing. Standing on the porch. Looking through the side panel. Testing the knob. Looking for the key that used to be hidden there years ago. I saved that video too. By noon I had 6 clips from the cameras. Front porch. Side gate. Backyard approach. Each one showing the same quiet search. None of it dramatic. But it didn't need to be. Layla arrived with coffee and sat in the chair beside the bed while I showed her the clips. She watched without speaking. When the last video finished, she leaned back slowly. That's not checking on the house, she said. No. He's looking for something. Yes. What? I opened the notes app on my phone and typed 2 words. Property deed. Layla stared at the screen. Why would he want that? Because he had asked about it 2 weeks earlier. Because he had debt again. Because he believed paperwork could be moved faster than consequences. But I didn't say all that out loud. Instead, I opened the camera archive and kept scrolling. At 1:12 a.m. there was another alert. Different angle. The hallway camera. For a moment the frame showed nothing but the closed front door. Then the knob moved. Once. Twice. A third time. The lock held. But the camera microphone picked something up. A voice. Low. Irritated. My brother. I know you keep it here. Layla sat forward. Play that again. I did. The sentence was clear enough. I know you keep it here. There was a pause in the audio. A soft thud near the doorframe. Then the line that had pulled me upright in the hospital bed earlier that morning. I'll find the deed and sell it. The recording ended with the sound of the handle turning again. Layla didn't move for a long moment. Then she exhaled slowly. That's not subtle. No. You're going to call him now, right? I shook my head. Why not? Because the moment you confront someone like that, the story changes. He would say he was joking. He would say I misunderstood. My mother would say the stress of the hospital made me paranoid. And the real problem would disappear before it could be proven. So instead of arguing, I kept collecting. I downloaded every clip from the last 48 hours. Saved them to cloud storage. Saved them again to an external drive Layla brought from her car. Then I checked something else. The garage. The system log showed 3 incorrect code attempts during the same night my brother had been at the back door. 3. Which meant he already knew the old code. And he thought it still worked. Layla watched as I changed it. You're still not going to call him, she asked. No. She folded her arms. He's literally on camera saying he's going to sell your house. I know. So why stay quiet? Because people who believe they're winning make mistakes. If I confronted him now, he would disappear for a few weeks. Claim he had been misunderstood. Wait until everyone calmed down. And then try something else. But if he believed the house was still vulnerable, he would come back. And this time, I would be ready. That afternoon the doctor cleared me for discharge the next morning. Layla drove me home. Before we even turned onto my street, I could see the locksmith's van parked in the driveway. 2 new deadbolts. Rekeyed side door. Smart entry system installed. The technician handed me a small envelope with the new codes and nodded toward the old cylinders he had removed. Someone had copies of these keys, he said. You did the right thing replacing them. I thanked him and waited until he left before walking inside. The house felt the same. But the air felt different. Quieter. Layla stood in the hallway and looked at the camera mounted above the coat rack. You're keeping those running, right? Yes. Good. That night I reviewed the footage again. And then something new appeared. A message from an unknown number. 3 words. Did you change something? I stared at the screen. A few seconds later, another message arrived. Your door won't open. I didn't answer. The typing bubble appeared again. Then the final message. I'll come back tomorrow. Layla looked over my shoulder and whispered, he's not even hiding it. No, I said quietly. He wasn't. And that meant the next part had to be done carefully. Because now the evidence was clear. The voice. The messages. The footage. Enough to prove intent. Enough to prove trespass. Enough to prove something else too. Family didn't stop him. Which meant family wouldn't stop what happened next either. I turned off the screen and set the phone on the table. Layla waited for me to say something. But I didn't. Because the moment we confronted him, everything would collapse into denial. And the proof we had collected would lose its value. So instead, I began making a different plan. Quietly. Carefully. Because confronting them would have ruined everything. I didn't sleep much that night. Pain medication dulls things, but it doesn't quiet your mind. Every time I closed my eyes, the same sentence replayed from the camera audio. I'll find the deed and sell it. Not angry. Not loud. Just practical. The way someone talks when they believe something already belongs to them. At 6:30 the next morning, I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table with my laptop. The house was still. The street outside had the slow rhythm of people leaving for work. A garbage truck passed once, then the sound faded. I opened 3 windows on the screen. The first was the cloud folder where the camera videos were stored. The second was a document listing timestamps and notes for each clip. The third was an email draft addressed to a lawyer whose name I had gotten from Layla the night before. I attached every file. Video clips. Audio recording. Screenshots of the messages my brother had sent. The log showing the incorrect garage code attempts. Then I wrote a short explanation. No accusations. Just facts. My brother attempted entry into my property multiple times while I was hospitalized. He stated intent to locate the property deed and sell the house. I have attached the security recordings. I asked 2 questions. What legal protections should I put in place immediately? And if he tried again, what would the next step be? I sent the email and closed the laptop. Layla arrived an hour later with groceries and a portable hard drive. She plugged it into the computer and copied everything again. 3 backups, she said. 4, I corrected. The lawyer's email. The cloud storage. The external drive. And 1 more place. The police department's non-emergency evidence portal. I uploaded the most important clip there as well. Not a report. Just a time-stamped record. Insurance. By late afternoon, the lawyer called. Her name was Danielle Park. Her voice was calm and precise, the kind of voice that listens first and speaks second. I reviewed the files, she said. And you handled this correctly. That surprised me. Most people confront the person immediately, she continued. That destroys evidence. I didn't say anything. She asked a few questions. Did my brother have a key? Not anymore. Did he have permission to enter? No. Did he have any legal claim to the property? None. She paused for a moment before continuing. If he attempts entry again, it becomes very straightforward. How? You call the police. I looked toward the hallway camera. And the recordings? They speak for themselves. After the call ended, I installed 1 more camera facing the driveway. Then I waited. Evening came slowly. Layla stayed for dinner but left around 9. She offered to spend the night, but I shook my head. This is better if I'm alone, I told her. Why? Because he expects that. At 11:42 p.m., the driveway camera activated. Headlights. A car door closing. My brother stepped into view. He moved quickly this time. No flashlight. No hesitation. He walked straight to the front door and tried the handle. Locked. He leaned close to the keypad and pressed numbers. Wrong code. He tried again. Still wrong. Then he stepped back and looked through the window. The camera microphone picked up his voice again. You think that'll stop me? He circled the house. Side door. Back gate. Garage. Each one locked. Each one recorded. At the garage keypad he punched the old code again. The system logged the attempt. Then he took out his phone and dialed. My phone began vibrating on the kitchen counter. I watched it without touching it. He let it ring. Then he left a message. Open the door. I know you're home. Silence. Then another sentence. If you don't answer, I'm coming in anyway. He walked toward the side window and pulled on the frame. The alarm chirped once. Not loud. Just enough. He froze. Looked around the yard. Then stepped back toward the driveway. For a moment I thought he might leave. Instead, he walked up to the door again and leaned close to the camera. You think locks matter? He tapped the glass with one finger. I'll come back tomorrow. Then he turned and walked to his car. The engine started. The headlights disappeared down the street. I sat in the quiet kitchen for another minute before moving. Then I picked up the phone and opened the message he had sent earlier that day. Did you change something? I typed a reply. Just 5 words. Yes. And everything is recorded. I pressed send. Then I opened the security app and saved the entire recording from that night. 3 more backups. 1 copy for the lawyer. 1 for the police portal. 1 for the drive on my desk. After that, I turned off the lights and sat in the living room chair facing the front door. Because the hardest part of a situation like that isn't anger. It's patience. My brother believed the house was still his opportunity. He believed I was injured and alone. He believed the next day would be normal. And people who believe that rarely notice the moment everything shifts. Around midnight, another message arrived. You're overreacting. I didn't answer. Because by then, everything important was already in place. The evidence. The witnesses. The legal protection. All of it quiet. All of it waiting. Outside, the streetlights hummed softly over the empty road. Inside the house, every camera was recording. And somewhere across town, my brother was probably telling himself this was just another inconvenience. Another obstacle. Another lock he could eventually force open. But tomorrow wasn't going to be like the other nights. Tomorrow was when the door would open. Just not the way he expected. They thought it was just another day. It wasn't. The next morning began quietly. Sunlight came through the kitchen window in thin strips across the table. The neighborhood sounded ordinary again. Someone starting a lawn mower. A car door shutting down the street. I made coffee and sat where I could see the front door. At 9:14 a.m., my phone buzzed. Danielle. I spoke with the police department this morning, she said. They've reviewed the clips you uploaded. And they agree the situation qualifies as attempted unlawful entry and intent regarding property interference. Her voice stayed calm, but there was a slight pause before the next sentence. They'd like to be present if he returns. I looked toward the camera feed. He said he would. Good, she replied. Then let him. The officers arrived at 10:02. 2 of them. Plain uniforms. Calm demeanor. No urgency in the way they moved. They parked one house down so the patrol car wasn't visible from the driveway. Inside, the living room felt almost normal. One officer stood near the hallway, watching the camera monitor on my laptop. The other leaned against the kitchen counter, reading the printed transcript Danielle had prepared from the audio recording. He read the sentence out loud once. I'll find the deed and sell it. Then he nodded slightly and set the paper down. Clear enough, he said. We waited. Time passed slowly. At 10:37 the driveway camera activated. A familiar car rolled into view. My brother stepped out, closing the door harder than necessary. He looked toward the house with the same confidence he had shown on the recordings the night before. He walked up the driveway and tried the front door. Locked. He leaned closer to the keypad again. Wrong code. Then he knocked. Once. Twice. Harder the third time. Open the door, he called. Inside, nobody moved. The officers watched the screen. He stepped back and pulled out his phone. A moment later, my phone buzzed on the table. Stop playing games. Another knock. Then the handle again. Locked. He exhaled sharply and looked around the porch, searching for something. Maybe the old spare key. Maybe the old habits. But everything he expected had already been removed. He turned toward the driveway as if deciding whether to leave. That was when the front door opened. I stood there calmly. Behind me, the officers stepped into view. For a moment, my brother didn't understand what he was seeing. His expression shifted slowly. Confusion first. Then irritation. Then something quieter. The officers spoke before he could. Sir, one of them said, we need to talk with you about your attempt to enter this property. My brother glanced at me. This is ridiculous, he said. It's my brother's house. Yes, the officer replied. And you've been recorded attempting to enter it multiple times without permission. He held up a small tablet. The screen showed the hallway camera footage. My brother's voice played from the speaker. I'll find the deed and sell it. The porch went silent. My brother's shoulders stiffened slightly. That's taken out of context, he said. The officer didn't argue. Instead, he scrolled to another clip. The garage keypad attempts. The back door handle. The flashlight moving along the siding at night. Each one quiet. Each one clear. No raised voices. No accusations. Just recordings. My brother looked from the tablet to me. You called the police, he said. I didn't answer. The officer did. We were contacted after evidence was submitted showing repeated attempts to access this property. My brother's tone shifted. I was checking on the place, he said quickly. He's been in the hospital. That's noted, the officer replied. Then he tapped the screen again. The audio played one more time. I'll find the deed and sell it. No one spoke for a few seconds after that. Finally, the officer lowered the tablet. Based on the evidence, he said calmly, you're being issued a formal trespass warning for this property. He handed my brother a document. If you return again without permission, you will be arrested. The paper stayed in my brother's hand for a moment while he read it. His face had lost the certainty it carried earlier that morning. Not anger. Something more fragile. The realization that the situation had moved beyond family arguments. Beyond explanations. Beyond excuses. He looked at me once more. You went too far, he said quietly. I didn't respond. Because there was nothing left to say. The officer gestured toward the driveway. That's all for today, sir. My brother folded the paper once and walked back to his car. The engine started. A moment later, the car pulled away from the curb and disappeared down the street. The officers stayed for a few more minutes, finishing their notes. Then they left as well. The house returned to silence. I closed the door and stood in the hallway for a moment. The cameras were still running. The locks were still new. The recordings were still saved in 4 different places. Everything that needed to be protected was already protected. Later that evening, I sat on the back porch with a cup of tea. The neighborhood lights came on one by one as the sun faded. No footsteps on the driveway. No messages on my phone. Just quiet. Not the tense quiet of waiting. The ordinary kind. The kind that comes after a storm passes. That night, everything was quiet.